My trusty sidekicks upstairs in the office will let me know if I disappear, I'm sure. My name is Christina Reid. I'm the Executive Director of Heritage Abbotsford Society in Abbotsford, British Columbia. I would like to wish everybody welcome and happy Heritage Week. We will be running 2 virtual events this week. I'm doing this one today because we will be in the next little while here launching our new virtual tour of Trethewey House. And so you'll be able to come visit Trethewey House virtually and walk through it and see all the stuff that's on display. And then on Friday, this Friday coming up, Natalia, who's our programs manager, will also be presenting a special Stories to Spaces. You can sign up for that offering just the same way you signed up to this one. Now, I want to start, as always, when we run events here at Trethewey House Heritage Site, with the land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we are on traditional, ancestral, unceded, and shared territory of the Samath and Matsqui First Nations. The Samath and Matsqui people have lived here along the Fraser River for at least 10,000 years. And it is our pleasure to live, work, and play in their territory. So we're actually going to start this tour outside. So we're going to just, I've put together some slides for you to sort of make my point here. We're going to talk about Craftsman and what Craftsman is, and we're going to do something we don't usually do. We're not going to use the artifacts in the house. We're going to use the house to tell the story today. So we're going to treat the house as if it were an artifact. And we're going to actually start on the outside of the building. So the arts and crafts movement is something that refers to a style that became popular in England back in about 1860. It was the reaction to what was felt was the cold and disconnected industrial revolution. You know, previously you had seen much along the lines of sort of Victorian and the sort of grand architecture. But the things that were used to build homes started to become manufactured and mass produced, and this was the reaction to that. So arts and crafts supporters, they disliked this mechanized labor that placed an emphasis on mass production over handmade artisanship, and sort of focused on quality over quantity. So you see this in buildings like Trethewey House, where you see woodwork and stonework and other architectural details that are made by hand. And most often it's going to be something that's used in the building that's actually local. So over time, the term arts and craft became a general term for this movement. And the idea was actually a sort of a social reform, but by the time the movement came over here, we get the term craftsman. Craftsman comes from the name of a popular magazine published by a furniture designer, and his name was Gustav Stickley. Now, if you look here in the top picture, you see the green set. And we don't have an awful lot of craftsmen sort of architectural or furniture bits and pieces that are not part of the house, but the green set is actually a Stickley set. So we have all 4 pieces of that set. It's an interesting set because it came from several different donors. And when the house was opened, they donated this set, each on their own volition, and we realized that this was actually a matching set that originally came from one of the earliest settlers to the area, Mr. York. He's got some schools and things named for him locally here. Because if you didn't break it and you know, you bought something new, You gave the stuff to somebody that needed it. And so this set went to 2 different families originally and then got spread out across the Fraser Valley, and we were able to bring it back together. And then you see here also in these other pictures that we've got some other very typical Craftsman bits and pieces. So this rocker here that you're looking at to your left, and this Davenport, that's a hide-a-bed. And you can also see the chair, which is very typical Craftsman. And Mrs. Campbell can see her nice painting that's up on the wall in the guest room that she donated to us. So what you see when you walk through our house are actually artifacts that people just like Mrs. Campbell have donated to us. They are made, used, or imported or sold in Abbotsford before 1925. If they're on display in the house, if they are educational collection, they're not necessarily from Abbotsford, but locally used and donated from somebody in Abbotsford. So Mr. Stickley, he starts this magazine and he calls it The Craftsman. He started it in the early 1900s, and the popularity of the Craftsman look took off and became really popular between 1910 and the late 1930s. And so over time, the name Craftsman for the style, which was originally just, you know, the handcrafted furniture designed and sold in Stickley's magazine, became synonymous with arts and craft here in North America. And then in addition to that, you can say the same thing about the Mission Brand Factory. So the Mission Brand Factory made furniture comes from the East Coast. So now we have 3 words for more or less the same thing. So Mission Style, Arts and Crafts, and Craftsman. And so there are some different companies where you could buy blueprints or even kits, the whole house, the whole kit and caboodle to build. And so throughout North America, so Sears and Roebuck Company, Montgomery Ward's, the Aladdin catalog, Woodward's, and there are 3 variations of Craftsman houses particular to Vancouver though, and the surrounding areas. That's the traditional Craftsman, Vancouver Craftsman, and the Craftsman Bungalow, which are all West Coast.
No,
I have somebody with their microphone on that I can't see. Let's see. Yeah. Let me see if I can figure out who it is that's got their. No, can't. Okay, so just a reminder, everybody, to mute your microphones, please. So let me see. So we're gonna go over to the next slide, which is right here. There you go. You recognize this place? So this is Trethewey House. Trethewey House is a Craftsman Bungalow, and it is our artifact for today. So the Craftsman style usually used locally sourced durable materials, such as the ones here at the base of the building. You see all the, right here, you got shakes and shingles throughout here. You've got locally sourced rock in the chimney and up here. Now this, I have to point out, is not something that's normal. This rock is painted. Generally speaking, look up here, up in the corner on your right, you will see that you've got some rock that's not painted. That's in all of the rock walls surrounding Trethewey House. But when we took over the house, the rocks on the outside of the building, which were actually collected all around the site, specifically when the foundation was dug, they were already painted when we took over the house, and they had been painted for a really long time. So we had made a point of keeping everything the way it looked in 1925. So not right when the house was freshly built, but from 1925. And from 1925 and on, these rock walls have been painted. So the idea with using local materials was really that there should be a more natural transition between the land and the built environment. So you can see the veneer used on the foundation and the exterior chimneys, like I said. This house, though, was built with the finest lumber, which was produced at the Trethewey's mill here at Mill Lake. But while sourcing the building materials locally, Mr. Trethewey, that's J.O. Trethewey, or Mr. Trethewey, he bought the plans only from the Sears and Roebuck catalog and begun to build this house in 1919. So you can also see that there's wooden siding and the gables and the hip shingle roof, all of that thing. And you can even, if you look over here, you've got the ridge of the house. It's been decorated. You see, these are typical craftsman little details that you've got all around the house. In our case, though, they serve no purpose other than looking nice. And then because Mr. Trethewey had access to all of this old growth fir that he used for this home and cedar for the roof, he also had access to this whole big thing. You see this piece here and this piece here. And then on the matching ones, you see a little bit of it right there on the other side. That was all cut out of one log. That's what you can do when you have access to these really big trees. Back then, of course, if you build something out of first growth cedar, let's say, that's a 70-year roof. When we put a cedar roof on today, that's not necessarily the case because the wood is not as dense. So you can see the half moon contour here on the fascia boards. That's very typical also for craftsmen. And then these things here, this is kind of a funny angle. You can see the pillars that we have here. Those are called squared or flared porch posts. In our case, they are flared. They're there to express strength, and it frames the porch. And the wide stairs in the front here, you can see them right here. And they lead up to the porch. It's very characteristic for this particular style. And the exposed soffits, this is what you're seeing at the top here. We have some more pictures coming up that show you all of those. The really important part here when you're looking at the outside of Trethewey House is that what's very typical is the porch, but also the roof. So bungalow roofs like this, they were made up of several integrated roof forms. So you see, you've got all of these little sort of nooks and crannies. This is a nightmare for our modern day roofers when they come in and they try to replace our roof. It's not fun for them because shakes and shingles and all of that stuff and all of these little nooks and crannies means that squirrels get in quite easily, they discovered. Let me see what we have here next. Oh, there's your porch again. So you can see that it's quite wide. It's got a nice sturdy door, and it's got two what's called lights on each side of the door, on the front door. Craftsman architecture promoted simplicity. That's in opposition to the Victorian and Edwardian styles. So they wanted clean lines that evoked strength and quality in how the exterior components were placed. So it's more informal than what you're seeing with the formal English and classical precedents to this. Typical of the style, though, the large front porch provides a transition zone. This is what we're looking at down here. You see this big deck? It's the transition zone between the outside and the comfort of the house's interior. Typical for craftsmen is that the predominant building material was wood. And that, of course, is even more typical for Abbotsford because that's a reflection on the local resources. Cedar shingles and shakes were used both for cladding and decorative components. And you can even see that we have sort of a combination of narrow lap siding and shingles. And that was really typical for the area. You can see it down in the Godson residence down the road too. Both of them were built at the same time in 1919. And then you have smoother cut wood that was used for the upper portion of the porch posts. A popular design element for Craftsman architecture are these balustrades, and that we talked about before. That's all of these ones right here. We got a whole bunch of them, and we have them on the back of the house too. You want to see it sort of an artistic exaggeration in the columns and the post and the eaves brackets and lintels and rafters. Now you see the foyer down here. Now we're going to turn around and we're going to face the opposite direction. See, there you go. So if you were standing with your back towards that spot that I just showed you, then you would be looking at this. In a craftsman home, the front door is generally centered beneath the ridge of the house, so right in the dead center. And it's going to be flanked by windows. So you can see that we've got, or the lights that I was telling you about before, they're right here. Or side lights in this case. And oftentimes with Craftsman, you've got leaded glass there. We don't have that. We have a nice wood frame. So we've actually got 2 panes of glass in each light. So actually entering a Craftsman style home starts at the porch and transition into this entry space that creates the barrier from the elements. So you want to make sure that you have this visual connection from the entry to the porch all the way down. So what you're looking at on the right here is this window that's called a piano window. The idea is that it doesn't matter where you are in the house, you can see the outside. You've got natural light all the time. Because we have changed the house a little bit, because it is a museum now, this area that's behind here was actually cut off. So there's a matching opening for another window like that, but it's now in the interior of the house because we have put a closet in the way of that. So actually you're supposed to have daylight all the way down the hall, and you don't generally have to keep that light on when that happens, but we do have to keep the light on or it gets dark. So let's see where we're gonna go next. We're gonna go to the parlor. So our parlor, you can see the picture on the left here. That's what you want to see in a Craftsman house. This is now the public side of the house, to the left or to the south of the entryway. The living room is located adjacent to the entry and has visual and physical connection to the porch. It also has visual and physical connection all the way to the back porch. If you're sitting where I'm sitting when I took this picture, then you would be able to see all the way into the kitchen and all the way up to the window in the kitchen. So the flow of these areas is about building a sort of a hierarchy of space, right? So you're locating more of the open space to the public side of the home than you are to the other side of the home, which we're going to see, sort of the private side. So in Trethewey House, this whole Craftsman vista becomes a little bit distorted because we have put down carpeting where carpeting isn't supposed to be, because we put, what was it last year, something like 25,000 people participated in our program. We bring in about 25 to 30,000 people. So we have to put the carpets down just to protect the house. And so it kind of interrupts that vista, that flow that you should otherwise have. Nonetheless, the public side of the house is now on your left there. The transition between the public spaces is delineated with a change in ceiling height. and cased openings. Cased openings, you can see them here in the middle picture. Yeah. So this is actually, the pocket doors actually go out to the hallway. So this is, if I were sitting on the couch, this would be to my right, and the fireplace would be to my left. And the kitchen, as you can see, is right straight ahead. So these cased openings provide opportunities for a change in color between the different rooms and finish materials, and initiates this transition through the public spaces. The parlor was used for formal entertaining, of course. Parlors and other public spaces relied on getting direct light from at least 2 outside window directions. In this case, we have the window behind me where I'm sitting in the first picture, and we have it to the left, so we actually have 3 windows in the room. Craftsman bungalows were located on deep and narrow lots usually, which made the orientation of living rooms and dens and dining rooms towards the street of the home focused on pushing bedrooms and bathrooms upstairs. And indeed, we do not have a bathroom down here. And all the bedrooms except for the maid's room is actually located, or are rather, upstairs. In the parlor specifically, you can find that typical emphasis on structure. So you can see in the picture to your right, the ceiling beams. You get these chunky window trims, and you get the chunky ceiling beams, even though they're not actually load bearing, they're just there because they look nice. And then the paneled pocket doors again. Horizontal elements are stressed in craftsman architecture in general, and you see that here in these pictures. Everything draws your eyes upwards. That's a complete departure from Victorian interior decoration. So, you know, the Craftsman Bungalow architect would have frowned on this sort of display of wealth, like this ostentatious wealth and costly collectibles, like you know, the Victorian era was fond of having all of that stuff. That's why we think of them as cluttered. Oftentimes when you're looking at old pictures from Victorian interiors, you don't see that when you're looking at craftsman buildings from the same era. So it's a luxury of taste that's substituting for a luxury of cost. The focus of the parlor is the wood burning fireplace. We're going to look at that a little bit later, because we've got bricks and tiles that are manufactured at the Claiborne brick plant. In these kinds of homes, the fireplace was typically centered on the outside wall, and it is absolutely dead centered on the outside wall in Trethewey House, and then flanked by high windows and bookcases. So we are going to find here that the Tretheweys have sort of veered off a little bit from the traditional craftsman style. So I'm going to talk about the bricks used in the house specifically a little bit later. But I want to show you next here what we have that we're dealing with in all the rooms in the house. We want to talk about texture. These are homes of an era where things were built with lath and then plaster, and on the exterior of the lath would be this plaster and horsehair. What you're looking at here, this is actually, all of these pictures are actually from different rooms of the house, but you can see that they've actually mixed sand into the plaster. So that's so that you will be able to get texture into things. They loved putting texture into stuff. This is basically the craftsman version of a popcorn ceiling. So you're getting a variety of textures as we go through the house, and I will be talking a little bit more about that as we go on. But you can see here in these pictures that well, the dining room that you're looking at is pink. The paint colors that you see throughout the house have been matched as closely as possible to the original colors that the Tretheweys had in 1925. So we went through this painstaking process of sanding carefully through the layers of paint and getting deeper and deeper, and then doing chip analysis on each layer as we went through it. So samples were taken from the original layer of paint in each room and then reproduced. So the most common colors for Craftsman for this era, 1919, would have been sort of dull gray shades and earth tones, even pastels, which were preferred over stronger colors that you would have seen in the Victorian era. Plaster with sand in the finish coat was suggested to give the walls texture as in this picture. So now the deal is that a plastered wall that's made with this kind of lath construction can take up to 2 years to dry. So you couldn't paint on it immediately. You could definitely not paper it because the wallpaper would lift on it. So you couldn't paint it unless you used calcite paint. So calcite paint is similar to chalk paint, which is what we call it today, right? The deal with the chalk paint, if you use that on plaster and horsehair, it becomes part of a wall. It absorbs into the wall and becomes a part of it. So houses would be constructed with the walls painted with calcite paints, which often comes out looking a pastel color. So even if you painted a bright blue on there, it would come up looking a little bit more muted blue because it absorbs into the plaster. So the owners could move in while the plaster cured though, which is what the Tretheweys did here. House was built in 1919. They're not fully moved in until 1920, and furniture and stuff is not fully in until 1921. But they didn't stay here for very long either. So after about 2 years, the owner could paper the walls, but that didn't happen here because Mrs. Trethewey moved out before the walls, literally before the walls were cured. Craftsman homes were quite often left unpapered though. You can see that this is how it looked right up until the Tretheweys moved out and the DeMosses moved in. And they are the ones that had painted and then wallpapered in a few places. So that would have been closer to 1930. However, you can't hammer nails into plaster. It shatters the large sections of the brittle masonry work that you get this way, right? And the house has picture rails and plate rails to hang artwork and photos on the plastered wall, so you don't damage them. And we're going to see shortly here that we have a wood paneling with chair and chair rail and plate rail was quite common to put sort of as the topper of that. In our case, we have a taller panel with a plate rail, and then we also have picture rail at the top. Let's see, now you can see here, this is throughout the house. We have the original fixtures. We have the really fun light switches. They talk back at you when you push when you push the light switch in, they push back at you, and then the top thing pops out, and then when you turn it off, the bottom thing pops out. And then you can see that we have lights. We don't have all the lights that were original to the house, but what we have done is instead of using new light fixtures that we've bought from somewhere else, we've taken the ones that were in the house and distributed them appropriately throughout the house. Oh, here we go with the brick. So now we have in the kitchen and the bathroom, you can see that we have clinker brick. So this is one of the hallmarks of Craftsman style, is this artistic use of materials like river rock and clinker brick, quarried stone. Remember we were talking about the stones on the outside of the wall? Shingles and stucco that's been mixed into other things. In the kitchen, you see that the brick, this clinker brick, this is what you're seeing on the right-hand side, this sort of rough brick. That was stuff that people in the Victorian era would have thrown out. But with Craftsman, we like to have texture. So this is what's in the kitchen. If you look on the left though, that is the fireplace in the sitting room, and the fireplace in the parlor as well have the finest money could buy, because here we said we were going to go with local materials and the best you could get from the local materials, and that was the Claiborne buff. That was the new state-of-the-art type brick. And you've also got, if you look down below the brick there, you will see that we have tiles, very, very Craftsman style tiles. And so it becomes a thing to choose what's local over what's typical Craftsman here. Let's see where we are with. Oh yeah, so now we are in the hallway. So this is the central hallway. Again, you can see on the right-hand side, you can see the piano window. Why is it called a piano window? Well, because they're up high and the piano can fit under. And they're small usually, and you can see we got picture rail. And in the hallway, we don't have plate rail, but we have the coat rack. And on the left-hand side in the big picture, you can see that we have the main floor outlet for the house's built-in vacuum. It was located there together with the best view of the remaining kitchen companion window. The shield shape thing beside it, the McClary's furnace, is a really cool thing. Actually, I think that's my favorite part of this house. This is a plate that would house the furniture damper chains. So those little holes that you're seeing at the top there, you could, the chains would come out, and you can actually follow straight down. You'll see there's two little holes way right at the bottom of the picture. That's where the chains would come out, and they would rest inside that opening there. And that is how you would adjust the dampers to, again, adjust the temperature in the house. So tension, you'd put tension on the chains to manipulate the airflow and thereby the temperature, right? So most other places had fire and wood, or fire with wood and sawdust in the basement. In our case, we actually had an oil furnace. And oil was brought in through the basement into the house. So we're gonna go there. See, there's your, you see it a little bit better there. Now, the pictures that you're looking at to your left are two pictures from the maid's bedroom. So you can see that the maid's room has, it's located on the main floor. So she has easy access to the kitchen, and it can also be separate enough for the family, from the family bedrooms on the upper floor, to provide a little bit of a semblance of privacy, we like to call it. This is an unusually spacious and airy accommodation for a housekeeper. But I want you to note two things in here. If you see beside the bed in the center picture there, you see the blinds, the rollers, very stereotypical green Craftsman blinds. Those were throughout the house in all the bedrooms. And then on your left, you have this odd angle in the floor. Now, this is an interesting thing. You remember when we were talking about the outside of the house, about showing all of these weird sort of nooks and crannies on the roof? Well, this is what they look like on the inside. You see the outside on the inside of the house in multiple ways. So this is actually, when you go down into the basement, which we don't show as part of that tour, those are the stairs. So that is the ceiling of the stairs that you're looking at, that weird angle. And that's put there on purpose as a architectural sort of addition. All right, and now we are in the library. The library in most houses were used much like a family room, sort of a more comfortable, casual room than the parlor. In our case, though, it was used as a music room. And you can see here that there's built-in bookcases. That's typical for the Craftsman style too. And that's why the room is called library. Built-in furniture in general is one of the hallmarks of Craftsman style, of course. Only one of the lead glass doors is original. In our case, we have 4 doors, but the one that you're looking at that's closest to the wall in this picture is the original. The other ones were reproduced from the original design. And you can see that the lead is a little bit darker, more oxidized patina than the original. And again, as in the dining room, you have a window seat that opens for storage. So we're gonna flip to our next room. Aha, there you go. This is the sitting room. So again, now you're looking at the brick. So if you look on the lower picture, right in the center, again, it's all Claiborne buff. There's texture, all of these funky, they've turned the bricks the wrong way out, if you ask somebody who was a designer in the Victorian era. But if you look at the center picture there on the bottom, you can see that you've got river rock, and those, again, local materials. Those rocks come from the Fraser River. And you can see how colorful the tiles are, the Claiborne tiles. The sitting room sometimes was called a den. It was set up for reading or sort of private away time. Craftsman writers that wrote for the magazine, the Craftsman, they would advocate this harmonious use of small and few furnishings, and that's what we've gone for in this office too. So oak woodwork that was in a building like this would demand oak furniture. In our case, though, the house is built with fir. So it's kind of funny because we get oak furniture, but we have fir for woodwork. But in this case, we know that the Tretheweys used rattan or wicker. And that it was quite common to supplement sort of oak furniture with reeds and rattans and wicker or willow in natural gray tones or pastels. And that's what was in here original, 2 rattan chairs and a small love seat. And we have heard stories about the second fireplace making the room so nice and cozy and comfortable that J.O. Trethewey used to come in here and take an afternoon nap in this room. And so now we're heading upstairs. So this is where you get to see the bathroom. We've left a hole in the wall in the bathroom because there's a lot of people that come in and they want to know about Craftsman style and they want to know how the house is built. So we left a hole in the wall so we can show you what lath construction looks like between the walls. So on your very left, you can see what the bathroom looks like. Again, now they've played around with colors and bright colors and textures. That blue section of the bathroom is actually notched out to make it look like there's brick in the wall. And the green section has been mixed with really, really coarse sand to make it really textured. And by the clinker brick chimney that comes up from the kitchen straight up and makes the bathroom nice and warm, you can also see this lath construction. And on the top picture, you can see Joey's bedroom. So Joey's bedroom is the smallest of the 3 upper floor bedrooms. Each one of the upper floor bedroom has 2 large walk-in closets that runs, they both run the width of the room, and they actually each have windows in them. So much storage space was unusual for the period and for the style of the house, which leads us to believe that it was one of the changes that Rita Trethewey requested when the house was being constructed. So the dresser in Joey's bedroom is not original to Trethewey House, but it is original to the Tretheweys, and they brought it over from their previous house to Trethewey House when the house was built. So Joey's bedroom has always had that dresser in it since the house was built. And now we are in the master bedroom. So the master bedroom is really interesting for a number of reasons. Again, this is where the Stickley furniture lives. It was a sort of a foreign concept to the original Craftsman house plans to have such a thing as a master bedroom. But eventually it became the major focus of North American housing to have this big master bedroom. The style of the house dates from well before its construction date, though. So in this case, you can also see the evidence of that in that there is a dressing room. That's what this door is here in the middle of the picture. So that's sort of a leftover. Prior to World War I, women used to have all of this much more elaborate dressing routine than after the war, and layers of undergarments and corsets and dresses and hats, and required more space to store and to put them on and take them off again in the evening. And by the time that this house was constructed, wartime shortages had changed the role of women in society in general, but the clothing in a major way. So there wasn't really a need for a separate dressing space. So a lot of people that had these craftsman homes, they started using these smaller dressing rooms to the side or adjacent to the master bedroom as a nursery for the very youngest infants. So the master also requires a walk-in closet. So there's multiple in-wall closets. So you can see on the left-hand side again, that is actually the master bedrooms built in. It's in the dressing room proper. So you can actually see it twice. There's this one, and it's the same one over here. So you can see it just from 2 angles. So this room shows more clearly than other rooms in the house a design feature that was employed by craftsman architects quite frequently. So you see downstairs in the public side of the house, it's you got much more headroom, taller to the ceiling. Once you get up here, the ceilings are lower, so the paint colors above the picture rail, that's up here, are lighter than the colors below to make the ceilings appear higher and the rooms larger. It draws your eye upwards. So let's see what next. Here we go. Now we're in the guest room. And we're back to the nice picture that we were looking at before. Now you can see it here too, but just barely. The camera makes it more obvious that there's 2 different colors here. You can see that above the picture rail in this room is a lighter color than below it. This was the original guest room, and unlike the rest of the house, the window seat in this room and the bookshelves were added after the construction to provide storage. Craftsman bungalows they create rooms under the shelter of the roof, and that's why this room is sort of curved at the top. It allows for the roof forms to be read through the interior, just like we saw in the Maids Room. So we're gonna see, here we go. This is gonna be our last slide. You can see to your left here, you'll see the the picture rail, and on your very right, you can see a picture hanging device that's hanging up on one of those. You can see that golden hook. What you're looking at right in the middle is a round hole that's actually supposed to have, in the winter time, it's supposed to have a curtain rod in it, because there's no flues on the in the fireplaces, so you can't close the flue. That means that cold air gets in all the time. So oftentimes what families would do, instead of trying to heat the whole house, is you would close off parts of the house when you weren't using them in the winter time specifically, so that you wouldn't have to heat them. In this case, you could close the pocket doors all through the room, and then you would hang these heavy, heavy curtains up on these curtain rods. And that would keep the cold air into that one room and leave the rest of the house warmer. I think that's all we have for slides. Yes, it is. There we are. Let's see. Let's see if I can bring myself up. And there we are. So we're on time for a change. Would you look at that? I did a tour on time. Woohoo! Now, everybody has their microphones muted. If you have questions, now would be the time to unmute yourself and ask any questions of me. Hi, Marianne. I see you. And that goes for my staff too, Sarah and Natalia. I can see you. I know you're on there. So I'm hoping that what we will be able to do is use the information that you've gleaned today in this little sort of, with all the slides and everything that I've showed you now, and take our tour, our virtual tour, which will be available to you. It's free to you to use. There will be a free download. You can put it on your cell phone, you can put it on your computer, you can put it on a tablet. It is an app called On This Spot, as in on this spot 100 years ago. Now, we have from On This Spot, if you go to their website, you can see also that we have walking tours for Matsqui Village, and we have one for the downtown core in Abbotsford. And so what you can do is you can either take yourself down there physically and use your cell phone and walk through and take a look at everything, or you can do it on your computer at home. You can click. And what I want you to notice is that when you go in and you look at On This Spot, you can click on Abbotsford and you can click on Matsqui right now. You can use your cursor, or if you're on a tablet or a cell phone, you can use your finger and you slide it across the pictures that you're looking at. It takes the old historic picture and turns it into a new picture of what it looks like today, and then you can go back and forth and to see how the landscape has changed. And it tells you the story, starting with the indigenous population, of course, and going all the way up to modern era. And what I would like you to know about this is the really cool thing is that those two projects are actually only our pilot projects. So within the next year or so, we have offered this up to other organizations and people who are interested in heritage, like yourselves maybe, to give us ideas for maybe a walking tour that another organization has put together, or a building that they think is really important for their community, but throughout the Fraser Valley. So the idea is that by the time we close this year, you should be able to go from White Rock, Mrs. Campbell, all the way out to Chilliwack, and looks like Mission is joining us. Alder Grove's already joined us. And we're looking at maybe going out all the way out to Agassiz as well. to make it one cohesive tour. So it doesn't matter where you go in the Fraser Valley, you can access the history of the Fraser Valley easily, and it is a free download. So as long as you have access to something like a computer or a tablet or a cell phone, you can join us on that. And on that same app, shortly you will be able to see also our walking tour for the house. And so that's it for me, unless you have questions. I have, let me just make sure that I don't have, yeah, no, there we go. I don't have any questions in the chat rooms, and I don't have anybody adding any questions anywhere else. So I am going to bid you farewell at this point. Please keep in touch and consider joining us on Friday and to listen to Natalia's presentation, Stories to Spaces. And again, we are happy that you came to participate in our Heritage Week presentation. Thank you, everybody.